welcome once again to the Nature and Wildlife Discovery Center. I'm Diana, the Raptor Center Director, and of course you are here visiting our Raptor Center. The Nature and Wildlife Discovery Center is actually a new organization. We were founded in 2018, created out of a merger between the former Nature and Raptor Center and the Mountain Park Environmental Center. The Nature and Raptor Center site is here in Pueblo. We have two campuses. We have the River Campus and of course the Raptor Center that you're visiting today. We're indoors here today because it's a little bit breezy and hot outside. I don't think Piper, my barn owl friend, will mind too much being indoors today. And then the other site is our mountain campus, and that's at the beautiful Pueblo Mountain Park in Beulah, about a half-hour's drive from the Pueblo site. Well, today we thought we'd do something fun. Over the last few weeks we've been visiting, and you've met most of our educational birds, but I thought I'd bring Piper out once again and introduce him again. Piper is, of course, a barn owl, and barn owls are quite common on the eastern plains of Colorado. They love to eat rodents, that's their specialty, and are just handsome birds. They're kind of interesting. In most birds of prey, males and females look the same, but there are a few species that show a difference in the color pattern. In barn owls, the boys have usually a white face and a white underside, and that's what Piper has. They have, the spotting is all individual. So some barn owls, we see the males, they have absolutely no spots on their belly, and they are just beautiful creamy white. But Piper is a little different. He's got a lot of spots going on. And then female barn owls are beige, sort of a tawny or beige color or buff. So their underside actually is kind of a beige color. They may or may not have spots. And then their face is a little more creamy or beige than the males are. So you can tell them apart as they come in. This time of year is breeding season for barn owls. So if you're looking for barn owls, you probably have to look in the night. They are very, very nocturnal, and they are also cavity nesters. So it can be really difficult to spot barn owls in the wild because of this. But they're very effective hunters, and of course, as all birds of prey go, they share common characteristics. So of course, they have large eyes to find their prey. They have powerful wings. Let me see if Piper will open his wings up a little bit for you. There we go. Powerful wings for chasing after their prey. They have large feet with, of course, at the end of their toes, those famous claws, the talons. And it looks like Piper needs a little bit of a trim. His talons are just a little longer than they should be. In a captive situation, raptors aren't as active as they normally would be in the wild, so their talons don't wear down like they would naturally. So we do go in and trim those. So Piper, you're going to have a spa day here real soon, so we can trim those. Maybe we'll video that for you and show you what happens. He doesn't really like it, but he tolerates it. Anyhow, they have those beautiful toes and talons, and of course their toes are very powerful. They have lots of squeezing pressure in their foot. Little Piper here, he weighs about 1.5 pounds, yet his toes are engineered for grip power, and he has about 75, maybe 80 pounds of pressure per square inch in his grip, which is actually the same strength as my hand. So his feet, same power as my hand, which is pretty phenomenal that he's that strong. And of course, with all that pressure from his toes, all that power, it helps him to drive his talons into his prey to help him catch it. And that's true of all birds of prey except for vultures. But anyhow, they also have to eat. And of course, that's where their hooked beak comes in. I think Piper, he's being very cooperative today. Let me pull his feathers aside so you can see his sharp little hooked beak. Okay, there you go. Nice close-up for you of that gorgeous little beak. And so those are the classic characteristics of a bird of prey. But of course, there's lots of different birds of prey. We're talking eagles, hawks, owls, falcons, vultures. So even though they have basic characteristics, they all have some very significant differences. And for the owls, it's their face. Well, that's one of the things, but they have these beautiful faces. Let me turn him back around. He has this heart-shaped face, and actually kind of makes a circle pattern of feathers around each side and around his eyes. And this facial disc, that's what we call it, this circular pattern of feathers, is actually a wonderful tool to help him capture sound, because many owls require sound to help them find their prey. They're hunting at night. Even though their eyes are engineered for night vision, it's still difficult to see mice in the grass or other small animals running about in leaves or debris on the ground. So these guys actually can use their ears to listen. So it's pretty amazing how well they hear. So you find your prey with your eyes or your ears, you pursue it with your wings, and if you were an owl, your feathers are incredibly soft, and the way that they're structured and engineered, they actually allow you to fly silently. So he would kind of swoop in silent. I like to think of owls as stealth bombers. They're hunting in the night. It's hard for anything to see them coming. They don't make any noise when they fly, so you can't hear them coming. You won't, and in fact, the mouse, and that's one of Piper's favorite foods, are rodents. He won't even know that the owl is there until the owl drops out of the sky and drops his bombs, which of course would be the feet, the toes, and talons, and grabs him. Once he has captured that prey, he may eat it right there on site. If it's large, he may haul it back up to a perch and eat it. But when he does eat, of course, he's going to use his beak. So he can use his beak for lots of things. He can use the beak to tear the food into pieces he can swallow, or amazingly enough, even though it looks like his beak is very tiny, if he were to open his mouth is quite large. And in fact, Piper can swallow a mouse whole. Now, I don't know if I can ask Piper. Let me see if he'll open. There you go. Whoa, let's see. Look at the size of that. I won't do that very long to him. But did you notice how big that mouth is? He could actually, if he catches a mouse, he can actually just swallow it whole. He doesn't have to tear up his prey. But if he caught something like a snake or a lizard or a young rabbit, something that's too big to swallow whole, he will use his beak to tear that food up into pieces he can swallow. And of course, when birds of prey do eat animals, when it is small, like a mouse, they swallow it whole, which means they're eating the whole entire animal. So Piper is not just eating the meat from the mouse, he's swallowing the fur, the bones, the teeth, the toenails, eyeballs, heart, liver, lungs, you name it, it has all gone into his digestive system. Even when he tears up an animal, again, if it's small enough as he tears it to pieces, he doesn't sit there and carefully peel back the skin and just eat the meat off the bones. He literally just starts at the head, using that beak to tear up that body into parts that he can swallow. So if it's small enough, again, he'll ingest all of it. He eats all the parts. If it's too big, like maybe he found a rabbit that, maybe he spotted a rabbit that a hawk killed earlier in the day and he's going to scavenge on it, it's possible he could do that. But if it's a big animal, yeah, he may just eat a lot of meat and not a lot of fur and stuff, but for the most part, he's eating every single part of it. So just like you and I, as the food goes in, it's going to go in, down the esophagus, of course, and to the stomach. And Piper's stomach is about right here at the bottom of his rib cage is his tummy. He's tolerating me touching him very well today. So that's where his stomach is. So all the stuff goes in there, fur, bones, teeth, muscles, you name it, it's all in that stomach. Now, when he swallowed that mouse whole, that meant he swallowed the mouse with all the bones intact. So in his stomach would be the whole skull of the mouse, all the leg bones intact. So there are some big chunks actually in his stomach. And the stomach, of course, just like in you, when you put food in your stomach, the stomach and chemicals are released to help you start to digest, to break down that food into like kind of a mush, if you will, and smaller particles so that it can exit the stomach and go into your intestines. So just like you and I, all this area in Piper is filled with intestines. However, he has a whole skull of a mouse in his stomach. His stomach digestive enzymes cannot break down bone, which means that bone, that skull, that jaw, that leg bone, they are actually too large to go from the stomach into the intestine. They get left in there. So a lot of the large undigestible things, teeth, bones, fur, feathers, they remain in the stomach, and all the smaller particles, just like you and I, goes out into the intestine and through to be digested and processed. Well, the stomach, of course, is a very powerful muscle. And all of the things that are left over in that area, well, he has to get rid of it. So the stomach can kind of squeezes or compresses on it and turns it into a really tightly packed little ball. All that fur and bones and stuff, it's compressed. And when it's squeezed tight enough, it's formed into, like I said, a ball, and it kind of looks like this, and we call it a pellet. So Piper, I'm not sure if he's made his pellet today yet. Could still, I don't feel it though in his stomach. He may have already gotten rid of it. But this little pellet is in his stomach, and once it's completed, he's going to want to get rid of it. So He can't pass it through the digestive system, so it has to come out the way it went in. So he's going to regurgitate the pellet. And instead of saying the owl throws up his pellet, we actually say the owl casts his pellet. That's so much more elegant than saying he pukes his pellet. So he casts his pellet. Now when pellets come out, they are disgustingly gross. They are covered in a mucus to help go back up the esophagus, and then it comes out. So when they first arrive, they're very gross and slimy, but we let them dry out and then we store them. And when we have school kids here or other things, we actually take them apart. And that's what I'm going to do with you today. I'm going to put Piper back here in a second into a crate so he can rest, and we're going to take apart a pellet. But before I do, let me just tell you why Piper is with us. Piper joined us about 7 years ago. He was found on the side of a highway by a Colorado Parks and Wildlife officer, and when they found Piper and brought him in, Piper had broken bones in the hand and wrist part of his wing. So you can see how the feathers are all out of placement. That's just because of all the twists and things like that. And this is his perfect wing. So this wing's healthy and this one is not. And because of all the damage from the fractures and healing, because you know when a bone breaks, the body sends calcium to try to mend it. So all that calcium buildup and all those fractures, and it was really hard to put all those little tiny bones back into position. And we couldn't get a perfect heal on those bones for Piper. So unfortunately, he can't use his wrist the way he would need to fly. And you can see when he stretches his wings how that right wing doesn't function properly. But because of that, he's non-releasable, and he's going to remain with us for the rest of his life. And so far, he's doing great. In a captive situation, barn owls can live to be 16 or so. So he's got many, many more years here with us at this center. So I'm going to go ahead and put Piper back, and I'm going to have a seat and put some gloves on, and we're going to take apart some pellets. So let me just set him in here. Okay, potty, in you go. All right. So these are a variety of pellets that we've picked up in our enclosures. These are all from our center here. It's nice to have a built-in pellet factory. People can, let me put my gloves on because they're gross and slimy. Actually, they're dry, but they're still gross. It's nice to have an in-house pellet factory, but a lot of people actually go out and look for pellets in barns, because like barn owls are cavity nesters, and like the name implies, barn owl, they do like to live in barns. So people actually go out and collect these and sell them to research labs and science companies that sell things. But we have our own in-house set. So these are different pellets. This is from a hawk, and the rest of these are from owls. And there's a little bit of difference. Barn owls, these are mostly Piper's pellets. Barn owls actually put a mucus on their pellet that makes it look black. It's not necessarily a reflection of the color of the fur of the animal. It's just that their mucus makes it look dark. Hawks, they put mucus on, but it's not colored. So usually their pellets are the color of the fur or the feathers of the animal that they ate. So they're really cool, and I'm going to take it apart. Now we use some things when we're learning about pellets. This is, just to show you, this is the digestive system of a bird of prey. And there's some differences. Owls have a little bit different, this is the esophagus here. So owls have a little bit different esophagus than hawks and eagles do, and falcons. Hawks and eagles and falcons, they have, like in this area here, it kind of looks like it bulges out a little bit. And this is up in their throat area. This area, actually, for a hawk, an eagle, or a falcon, it expands. So when they're eating rapidly, instead of all the food going right to the stomach, what they'll do is they just swallow, and this crop area of their esophagus expands so that they can stuff themselves with food, fly off, and then slowly start passing the food down into the stomach. It makes it just for them to be able to eat really quick and go, and also to eat a lot of food at a time, at one time, because they do have an area where they can store it before they send it down. Owls, on the other hand, do not. They do not have a stretchy area in their esophagus that they can pack with food and go. So when they swallow, it goes right down to the stomach, and things get busy. So it's kind of different, a little bit different shape to the intestines. But of course, you know, that goes out, and these are the intestines, and all the way out until it reaches the vent or the cloaca, which is the exit point for their waste product. And yes, they make waste just like we do. They have liquid and solid waste. So, but a little bit different is they have one area. So both the solids and their urine would collect here at the end of the large intestine and be mixed together. And that's why when you see a bird go to the bathroom, it's black and white. The black part is the solids or the poo, and the white is the liquid or the urine, and they're just mixed together. So it's a little more efficient than we are. They don't have to carry around a bladder like we do. Their liquids just go and solids go to one same spot, and it's very small, which is why birds go to the bathroom all the time. They just don't store it like we can, and that helps them with flying and being lightweight. So that's sort of what their digestive systems look like. Okay, so we use some other tools. Usually when you're going through a pellet, your goal is to figure out what they're eating. I like to think of pellets as little mystery packages. So we use some charts just to show the different types of bones on a rodent. And I think most of the bones that we're going to see today are from rodents. So we also have a different type of chart. This is a bigger one. Sometimes when we have pellets from the wild, this other chart, which is a little more complicated, is really nice to use because it covers different size animals like rodents, which are of course rats and mice, shrews, which are little carnivorous critters, moles, which of course live underground, and birds, because lots of birds of prey do eat other birds. So we have different types of bones. And then when we're going through, what we can do is we find the bones, we can identify what they are and then match them up by their shape to help us determine what that bird has eaten. So we got our chart, our bone chart, we got our pellet. Let's take apart this middle one. So when we take apart a pellet, there's nothing delicate about it. You just start tearing it apart. And right there we have the bones. So so this is what you're doing. We just separate out all the bones. There is, okay, cool. Let me see if we can find it. It's always fun because sometimes the bone, like the whole foot, will still be intact as it comes apart. So this was a very furry critter. Nice. And you just sort of feel through the fur, trying to pull all the bones out. Okay, so that's all. And you just go back and you just keep taking it apart. Oh, there's a little piece. And of course, you know, if it were like a hawk, or an owl, sometimes they do tear, especially if they have time. Oh, here's some little tail bones falling out. Oh, here's a rib. There's a rib from a rat or a mouse. Oh, I can feel a little piece in here. Yep, you just got to get your fingers in there and go for it. There's part of this. Can you see it? Let me turn it so you can see it. There's a spine. There's a vertebra. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Oh, here's another part of the tail. Whoops. It's too much fun. There we go. Looks like some scapulas, backbone from the shoulder. There's some more, another piece there of spine. Oh, here's the other leg. Here's another leg bone. That's kind of cool. Sometimes when we do pellets, the birds can break up the bones. I was hoping we'd find a skull because that's awesome. Here's another vertebra. There's a nice one. There's a nice one. Piece of backbone right there. There's another rib. Another piece of vertebra. Okay, where's the head on this guy, huh? Okay. I can do this all day. I have a good time with this. But we can find all kinds of bones. This is really fun. You just have to take your time and keep fishing through. Let me try this other piece because I really was hoping for a skull. Oh, here's a front leg bone. There we go. Or a femur. We'll have to look. I think that's the femur. Maybe this bird just had the back end. Oh, here's a rib. And there's all these little tiny. Here's like finger bones from the paw. There we go. There's some more tail. Here's another rib. Isn't it amazing that those little tiny bones are not digested? So this is definitely from an owl. If this were from a hawk, all all those little bones would be gone. Their digestive system, their acids in their stomach are strong enough to break those little bones down. We probably, if this were a hawk, we probably would have only gotten these bigger bones back. All these littler ones would have actually been digested, which is why when we do pellet dissections, often we try to use owl pellets because they're the best for finding little bones. But it's always kind of interesting when you get a pellet that's just all fur. And oh, I'm feeling something bigger. Maybe we may have to break open another one to find a skull, because I don't find one in here. And that's not unusual. Sometimes if the owl has eaten quite a bit, maybe he's eaten 3 or 4 mice, it's possible he'll make several pellets. That there were a couple pellets that came out, and the skull isn't in that one, but it might be in the next one. So you just don't know. It's possible he could have fed the owl to the head to his kids. Who knows what happened here? But no skull so far. There's the other femur. So no sign of the head. But should we crack open another one and see if we can find? This one looks promising. I'll break this one open. I really was hoping for a skull. This one's packed really tight. Ooh. Wow. Oh, look at, there's a rib. I think that's part of his tail. Yeah, ribs. This one is totally packed. This is a great one. Anyway, let me see. I just really want to find a skull for you. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to be delicate. Oh, there's a jawbone. Oh my gosh, look at all these little tiny. Oh, here we go. There's what I'm after. Okay. So here's the jawbone, and look at the little tiny teeth. The little tiny rodent teeth. Isn't that cool? So cool. So that's a jaw. So maybe, let me fish a little bit more. See if we got the skull. Oh, here's the other jaw. There we go. So we got a matched set of teeth. There we go. And lots of ribs. Oh, I see I'm getting to part of the skull. Looks like the skull's been broken up. So there's part of the skull. It's really been cracked up. Oh yeah, here's the rest of it. Hold on, let me gently. It's so delicate. Here we go. You get the ribs out of it. I mean, things just all get all twisted together. It's crazy what that stomach can do. But here is, oh my gosh, get the fur off. But there's a row of teeth. There we go. So here's the underside of the skull. You can see the little molars right there. And so this would be part like this. This is part of his back cap of his skull. And then let's see what else is in here if the rest of it's there. Looks like that skull was pretty fractured. But we could do this forever, and I know you guys have other things to do today. Oh, here's the tail. There's the tail. Here's a scapula, his shoulder blade, and all kinds of things. So we can go on and on and on, but eventually what you can do is you can take all those bones, and we've done it. I don't know if you can see it. Let me pull it out of this bag where it might be easier to see without the shine. So this is where we put the skeleton back together. So when you have a lot of time on your hands, you can put the skull and the bones back together and glue them onto a little card, and it's really quite fun. Now, what makes pellets important is one, we can learn what the birds are eating. It's a useful tool to see what these guys are eating in the wild. Instead of putting down live traps and trying to catch rodents, you can actually just learn where the favorite perches are of birds of prey, and then pick up their pellets and do exactly this. And actually I did that a little bit in college for a mammal professor. I sat and looked at skulls of mice in pellets and other small animals to see what they're eating in the field, but it can be a useful tool to determine what's living in a field of grass without having to do live trapping. So raptors can be helpful there. Also, what they're doing, what they're eating is important to know. And also, sometimes I know from our point of view, when we get in a bird of prey, injured or ill, if it casts a pellet, we don't wait for it to dry out. We just take it apart immediately, because sometimes what's in the pellet can be a clue as to why the bird's not well. So for example, one day we got in a Swainson's hawk, beautiful hawk of the prairie. They eat a lot of insects and small rodents. And he came in, some people found him on the side of the highway, totally paralyzed. And they brought him in, and of course, since he was totally paralyzed on the side of the road, we thought perhaps he'd been hit by a car and was suffering from neurological damage, spinal trauma, brain trauma, and we started treating him for that, which is appropriate. But a little bit later, he actually did cast a pellet, and we took the pellet apart immediately, and it was just filled with grasshopper exoskeletons. And that made us start thinking. So we worked with the local wildlife officer, and he kind of scoped out the area for us, and he noticed that there was a field nearby, about 500 yards from where the Swainson's was found, that had recently been sprayed with pesticides to kill grasshoppers. And this field was just full of dead and dying grasshoppers. And as Swainson's hawks love grasshoppers, we thought, well, maybe this guy's just been feeding on grasshoppers that are dead and dying for a few days, and perhaps he has pesticide poisoning. So we did the homework, and with our vet, we figured out, yes, indeed, that was the case. We talked with poison control and found out from the landowner what they'd used. And between everybody kind of working together, we came up with a treatment solution, and the bird did survive. And about 3 weeks later, he did get to go back to the wild, so that was really exciting. And of course, we gave him a stern talking to about eating dead grasshoppers off the ground. It's probably not a good idea. However, I don't know that he'll respond to that very well. But it was an interesting lesson for us, and it was, of course, a success, thankfully, because if he hadn't cast that pellet, I don't know if we would have figured out in time what was actually happening to him. So we were very, very lucky to have had that success. Well, we hope that you're being successful with everything that's been going on. We hope that you're staying well and being safe in your actions. I know things are opening up more and more, and people are starting to get out and active, which we're so excited about. Certainly, please visit us at both our sites, the mountain park, go for a hike, have a picnic with your family. But do keep in mind that in all our areas, we're encouraging and hope you'll practice safe social distancing. We want everyone to be well. We don't want to have this pandemic flare back up at us and have to shut down. And I do have some happy news. We have a good plan for the Raptor Center to reopen to the public. So starting on Friday, July 10th, the Raptor Center will be opening up to visitors, and we will be open at this point on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 11 to 4. We will, of course, be monitoring and have some things in place, and we'll be posting those in the next day or two on our Facebook page so that we can keep everyone safe. But we're looking forward to having visitors back. I know Lurch, our turkey vulture, is eager to have people back in the center and entertain the crowds because he's such a ham. So we're looking forward to that. So in the meantime, we'll still be going with our Facebook Live talks until we open back up, and then we'll hopefully go from there at that point and reevaluate what's happening here. But anyway, from all of us here at the Nature and Wildlife Discovery Center, again, we hope you have a great day. It's a beautiful, warm day here in southeastern Colorado, so get out and enjoy. Thanks.